Hey yo, what up though? It's your boy Brad Butler II, and welcome to the Living Purpose Podcast. This is where we educate, motivate, and celebrate those who are making an impact in the community in a positive way. So today I have a very, very special guest, Miss, the one and only, Alycia. Am I Wait, I gotta make sure I'm pronouncing the last name right. So correct me if I'm wrong. Guichard.
Guichard.
There it is,
Exactly.
Alycia Guichard.
Yes,
All right.
Thank you so much.
So for those of you who don't know who Miss Alycia is, she is a corporate lawyer, a corporate attorney. Not just a corporate attorney, but a corporate attorney for one of the biggest companies in the world. I'm finna name drop Verizon.
Yes.
Right. So here's the thing. I know when people hear of your title, and obviously when you work for a company like that, I used to work for Verizon back in the day, right? We talked offline, and they took care of us.
Oh.
They took care of us. I will never have anything bad to say about the company Verizon, because every format that I worked with them, whether it was cold calling, door-to-door sales, working in the corporate offices or whatever, working from their campaigns. It did not matter. They took care of us. If their name was attached to it, they wanted to make sure that their employees were taken care of.
I had the same experience, and I tell people all the time, I love Verizon. When I meet people who are looking for work or looking to figure out kind of how to get started in the business, I say, listen, if Verizon is hiring, get hired, because they will take care of their employees. And I don't care what position you have there. I'm in corporate, but all the people that I know who are at Verizon, they're happy and they're being well taken care of.
Absolutely. Listen, and my story is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm not still with Verizon to this day is because of the fact that I decided to take a leap of faith and go out and start my business as a youth and school motivational speaker, and that led me to where I'm currently am today. But if none of that worked out, I thought for a long time the best that I probably could have been able to do with my life was be a manager at Verizon. And I didn't think it was going to be a bad deal because the money was pretty good. They had the bonuses, the structure was pretty great. And I was like, okay, cool, I can deal with that. And I was just led in a different path.
Right.
So I know when people see you and they hear your story and all the things going on, like the company that you work for, right, and the position that you hold, okay, obviously financially you're taken care of,
Yes.
right? And we ain't gonna get into the numbers, but I know financially you're taken care of,
Yeah.
right? We were able to talk offline about that, but they don't see what it took to get there, right? 9 times out of 10, people, they judge you, because isn't that crazy? How, whether it's a bad situation or a good situation, or
Yes.
you kind of in that gray area,
Yes.
people just judge you no matter what. Like, it's just like, oh, you're doing bad. You should be doing better for yourself, man. Get your life together.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. And then you're doing real good. It's like, oh, well, somebody probably gave that to you.
You think
This,
you're
that.
better than other people.
Yeah, you think
That's
you're
like
better than somebody.
That's like my worst, the way people judge me that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like growing up the way I did without and struggling, that people should appreciate people's growth. And I think that's the most harmful response to someone, is that they think that they're better than other people. No, I just want to do better for myself, and I want to encourage others to do better for themselves. But it's not about leaving anyone behind, and it's not about talking badly or judging people behind. It's about helping and pulling them up.
Right. So I'm glad that you said that, because I want you to go back and talk to us about who Alycia was in the beginning, before Verizon came about, before you knew that you wanted to be a lawyer, before all these, things came about. Who were you in the beginning? Like, tell us a little bit about you, when you were just getting started with things, finding your way.
Yeah. So I grew up in New York City. I grew up in a New York City foster care system. I did have relations with my family, so they were around. But, just challenges as a teenager with my mother and my father, and then moving into a foster care agency, which was very difficult. So I've experienced homelessness. I've experienced being in foster care. I've experienced being in special education. I went to about 5 different high schools, didn't graduate from any of them. They said I was dyslexic. They said so many things about me. I've experienced emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And so just a lot of things that I dealt with growing up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. But it was a struggle, but my grandmother taught me about faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, sometimes I look back at pictures and I see this little girl, and I'm like, wow, how could you have experienced some sense of happiness in all that you had been going through? And I always think it had to be God.
Mm-hmm.
It had to have been my faith. But it was rough. I mean, those things were not easy, being hungry. So sometimes when I talk to people who are working with young people or working with people who are not in an advantageous situation where they have to struggle for food or shelter, I ask them, I said, listen, you have to really consider that they don't have an attitude, or they're not showing up because they're angry or they're upset at you.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they're just angry and upset about their situation. So I have a lot of empathy for people, and I try to encourage people who haven't experienced that past, what it means to have empathy for these people.
Right.
And so
right.
I try my best to, teach that as a form of understanding.
Got you. No, so that and we've talked before, and I've told you, yeah, you have a very powerful story, and I know you've had the opportunity to go out and kind of tell your story a bit more, and that's great because the world needs it. Like, they need more people like you out there telling their stories. So I know you were in the foster system and everything. So what started to change? Like, what when you started saying to yourself, okay, I kind of want more, I want to try different things, or did you always want to be a lawyer?
So, in New York, when you go to court to get your parents' parental rights are taken away from them, I remember being in the courtroom, and I remember no one asked me a question. So no one was really speaking to me. No one asked me what I wanted, whether I wanted to go back home. They were just speaking around me. And even though that was in the family court experience, I felt like at that time I was like, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a judge. Like, I want to do. I want to feel important. I mean, as a young person who grew up in foster care, who went to 5 different high schools, probably three junior high schools, being in special education, being told that she couldn't accomplish anything, or feeling like I couldn't accomplish anything more than what I was at that time, I wanted to do something great, and I felt like being a lawyer would be great. So from that point on, I felt like that was what I wanted to do. And then I used to watch The Cosby Show, and I always tell people, like, watching The Cosby Show made me feel like I wanted to be a lawyer as well. Again, just seeing...
Everybody wanted to be Claire Huxtable.
Yes. So just seeing that, dynamic between a man and a woman having a family, and they were both successful people, I hadn't seen that, not with my family, but not also even with other families in my neighborhood, because we were all kind of in a similar situation.
Right.
So it really empowered me to learning. And that's why I always tell people, like, you have to learn from exposure versus experience only.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's very important, to learn from seeing versus having to deal with it yourself.
I feel like that's like a running theme with some of these interviews that I've been doing as of lately. Is when you actually expose yourself to a different environment, to different people, a different way of thinking,
Exactly.
It shows you what's possible. I used to tell people all the time, I hate school, and I hate math. It's my worst subject. And I hate statistics. Most people don't like statistics. Even if you do like math, you don't like statistics, right? Especially
hard.
college statistics. But one thing that I picked up, and it always stuck with me, was possibility versus probability.
Absolutely.
And possibility, of course, we know is something possible, right? Probability being the likelihood of something being possible. And I started looking at my life and things around me and saying, man, okay, is it possible for me to do that? Okay, well, other people have done it, so I know it's possible. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to increase the probability, the likelihood of me being successful doing this thing. So how do I do that? And that's when it really started.
Exactly. And I would agree with that comment. In fact, people always ask me, like, how do you do it? And I always say, if another human did it, I can do it.
Right.
And I think that's so powerful. If you have an example, if someone has done it before you, and we live in a world where millions of people have done it before you, so can you. And when I say that, I mean anything. I tell people all the time, from homeless to Harvard, or from, homeless to just having your own home. If anyone has done it before you, you can do it. And guess what? If no one has done it before you, you can still make it probable that you can do it too.
Right.
And so I just think it's important. I try to encourage people to lead and learn from within. It has to come from within you. Nothing externally is going to make you okay. You have to make yourself okay within, and then once you do that, anything external you can have.
And that's funny you say that because I believe it was a couple years ago I looked up the root word for education, and I believe it's a Latin word, and the root word too is like educo, which means to learn from within.
Oh,
So, so when you talk about learning, it has absolutely nothing to do with the schoolhouse, universities, degrees, tests, quizzes, none of that. It has to do with learning from life's experiences.
Exactly.
What did you learn from life? And listen, I know I was able to, go off and, get my master's degree, and, I was in special ed classes for 10 years and all that. That was sheer will and determination. It had nothing to do with how smart I was. And I'm sure you have the same type of story where it's like getting here had nothing to do with me just waking up one day and just realizing, oh, I'm good at math.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm good. No, I'm not. Like,
and people get mad at me because they're like, how did you do it? I'm like, yo, I'm not smarter than you.
right.
I am not, but what I do know how to use is to figure out where I am, determine where I want to go, and understand the path that's going to get me there.
Right.
And that has been the most helpful tool in any class, the class of life or the class in the university. Figure out where I am. So obviously coming into the class, I'm at 0. I want to get to 100 to get an A. So what do I need to accomplish to get to that? And if you use that analogy, and I'll tell you about a little analogy I have that I use, but if you use that simple analogy, you can accomplish anything.
Right.
And so my little analogy has always been, the analysis in law, I guess we call it like critical thinking. So the critical thinking analysis that it takes for a person to determine how do I get from, I live in West Orange. How do I get from West Orange to New Brunswick? Seems simple enough, right? But if you really sit down and think about it, there are a multitude of possibilities and probabilities that is going to accomplish that goal. Am I taking a car? Am I going to take an Uber? Am I taking a bus? Can I fly there? Can I take a boat there? One, does those things come with any costs? Do I have the money to fill those costs? There's so many things that you have to think about. And so once we start analyzing those simple processes, well, that same thought process to get me from West Orange to New Brunswick is the same thing that goes from homeless to Harvard. People always say, or whether or not your shoelaces need to be tied. The analysis is the same. It's only the thing that you're trying to accomplish, which is different.
Right. Okay, one thing, I don't want y'all to think that my shoelaces were untied. They're tied. She was just using that as an example.
They
It was
are
improv
tied.
too, all right?
And they're very nice shoes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't want to throw them up there for, what I mean? But I want us to get back to your story, right? Because you left us off where you kind of had the epiphany, like, hey, I think this is something that I might be interested in because I want my voice to be heard too.
Yes.
They asking everybody else in here about my life, but ain't nobody asked me. I want to be in this situation where, no, they want to know what I have to say, right? So take us from there to what led you to where you are now.
Okay.
Because I know that's a process.
It's a process. So I ended up leaving high school the last year, just feeling a sense of depression, actually, at the time I was going to Jamaica High School, and feeling like the world was a bad place, and things was, I think a lot of kids who deal with trauma early on, they get depressed. And I was very depressed, and I felt like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And actually, my biological mother encouraged me to go to Job Corps. So I signed up for Job Corps. I went to Job Corps. And, there's so many stories of strength in some of these things that happened to me, but I got there, and they said in 2 days that there was going to be a test for the GED. And I begged the lady to let me take the test. And she was like, nope, because you have to go through, like, the process of, learning the materials first. And I, begged and begged and begged. And I was like, wow, just shows, my determination. And she finally said yes. And I took the test, and I passed the test. And I was, so excited about the fact that, one, I didn't give up on asking, because there's no harm in asking, and I try to teach people that all the time. There's no harm in asking for what you want. And two, that I passed, and I passed by the grace of God, because I didn't think that I was smarter than anyone. I didn't think that I had any special tools or anything. I just knew that by the grace of God, I needed to do this to move on with my life, and it was given to me based on what I had done. And so I took the test, I passed the test, and I ended up getting into a lot of trouble at Job Corps because it's just the nature of how I grew up. Don't look at me, don't talk to me wrong, I'm from Flatbush. That was kind of how I grew up. And, but there was a woman there who just saw something in me, and she encouraged me to take some college classes. And I took these college classes, and I didn't do too well in them. I think one was an art history class, one was like an English class, and I eventually had to leave Job Corps. But in the midst of that, she actually applied for me to go to Farmingdale University. I don't know how she did it, but I got a letter saying that I was accepted into Farmingdale University when I was leaving there. So I left there only onto Job Corps in Marist, New York, and went to Farmingdale University, which is the only place I would have had to go because I would have been homeless if I hadn't gone there.
Right.
So I went to Farmingdale University. I spent about a semester there, and around Christmas time, again, nowhere to go because at that time, because I'm really old, so at that time, you had to take your things and go home. And again, my relationship with my family wasn't good, so I didn't have a place to go. And I met a young lady who actually introduced me to her family, and they were wonderful, very religious people who pretty much invited me to their home anytime I wanted. And again, another lesson I learned is sometimes God puts things into our environment, and we're not ready for them yet. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people would offer me things, and I couldn't accept them. Mm-hmm. And so at the time when they offered their home and anything else I needed, I didn't have the strength or the understanding to accept it at the time. So we remained in contact, me and Tony, and mm-hmm. we became like sisters. And her parents stayed in my life, and they were very godly, so they taught me about the relationship with God in a big way. And so I eventually did end up moving in with them a couple of years later, and just really enriched myself with learning about being successful. Her dad was a biochemist, and her mother was like a school teacher in the Yonkers public school system. And so anyway, I was able to eventually move from Farmingdale University to living with them and eventually transferring to Westchester Community College.
Gotcha.
In the middle of that, a lot had happened.
Right.
I ended up getting all F's at Farmingdale because I left and didn't go back. I ended up working at a law firm in the city. I ended up doing a bunch of different things that kind of led me to, where I am today. I worked for a very, what they call a white glove, white shoe law firm, which was Dewey Ballantine at the time. It just means that it was like the creme de la creme of law firms. Mm-hmm. And I was like in amazement. I was a fax operator at the time. And I was like in amazement of like how they dressed, what they wore, like how beautiful the environment was. I had never seen anything like that before. And it was awesome, and it encouraged my spirit. And because I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but the only type of a lawyer I saw at that time was the one representing me in family court. Mm-hmm. So I got to this environment, I'm like, oh my goodness, these people are doing $1 million deals, and they're talking to corporations and doing all these wonderful things, and it was in the Fox News building. And so it was just a really good experience getting me to there. So I got to Farmingdale University, and I, again, moved on to Westchester Community College. And, it was a struggle. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a car. I was trying to get from place to place, trying to understand, college life and education. Like you said, it's not easy, transitioning from, being not a high school graduate, but somebody who struggled through school and the classes are hard and they're difficult and you're getting like C's and hoping that, maybe you can pull this up. So I started getting C's and D's in the beginning, but I was always a fighter. And this is what I try to tell people. You have to ask for what you want. So when I got the bad grades, I went to the heads of the departments. I spoke to them. I told them, listen, I'm late every day because I don't have a car. I, told them a little bit about my backstory. And I remember the professor, the dean of the English department said, if you write for the school newspaper, I will, and if I see you writing and you're doing well, I'll change your grade. So I ended up being assigned to the president's office. I met with the president of the university every week, wrote stories about what was going on campus. After the dean checked it, he gave me a better grade than I had. So I had lots of experiences where I was able to kind of fight for what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And that was like such an awesome opportunity to do that. I ended up going to Westchester Community College for 2 years after graduating there with straight A's and a full tuition scholarship to NYU. I went to NYU and I stayed there for 2 years, and I graduated from there with honors and with full tuition scholarship from the American Bar Association and from Fordham to go to Fordham University School of Law.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a wonderful experience there. While I was there, my very good mentor, Angela Below, and her husband, they had been awesome to me. They introduced me to John Furyk. And let me tell you a story, actually.
All right.
Because sometimes you meet people and they're putting your life for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was at Westchester Community College, I was in a mentoring program, and they connected me with Texaco. And I met a woman, Cheryl Morrison Frost, and she was a Caucasian woman who said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be a lawyer." And she said, "I have this wonderful African-American lawyer for you to talk to." I was like, okay. So she introduced me to this woman, Angela Below. And Angela was pregnant at the time when I met her. And, just being pregnant and being a corporate attorney and busy, she was like, "Well, what are you doing now?" And I told her that I was in Westchester Community College. And she said, "Well, you have some time." And so she really didn't really engage me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I sent her an email every couple of months. I kind of kept in touch with her, let her know what I was doing. And she ended up being like, one of the best supporters in my life. And so here was this corporate attorney who I stayed in touch with. She started inviting me to things, inviting me to events. And when it was time to go to law school, I got put on the wait list at Farmingdale University. And I did not, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to stay in New York. And so I told her that I really wanted to go there. One night, a Saturday night, late at night, I got a phone call from her, which was weird because, she usually calls me during the regular hours. She said, "Listen, I'm in Chicago. I'm with the dean. There was a board meeting on this organization I'm on a board with, and you were in Fordham." And I was like, oh my goodness. So that must have been like a Saturday. By Tuesday, I got a letter that said, "You've been accepted to Fordham University in the evening program." So I called her and I said, "Thank you so much, Angela, but I don't want to be in the evening program. I want to go to the day program." And on Friday, I got a letter that said I was in the day program. So it was just an amazing way to see how different people move and how people get what they want by just asking for what they want, having connections with the right people, and networking. So that happened. I went to Fordham University, met the dean, worked for the dean for a couple of years. I participated in a program which allowed me to be the only participant in this program, a judicial externship program, to get placed with a federal judge. And I was placed with Judge Sonia Sotomayor.
Okay.
So I ended up working for her for a summer. We had a wonderful relationship. I grew up in Brooklyn, had never walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. She made that a reality. And she's just a really wonderful person. She's now, as you know, in the Supreme Court. I have a letter from her from the Supreme Court, and I look forward to continue my relationship with her. So life has just kind of like taken me to this place where you keep seeing all the growth and all the wonderful things that people want to do to help you and get you where you need to go. The Honorable Sonia Sotomayor introduced me to Judith Kaye, who was the chief judge of New York State before she passed away. She was another woman who just inspired me and took me to lunch on Park Avenue every couple of months and just poured into me. And that's why I love pouring into people, because I tell people I had so much given to me.
Right.
And I love to give back. So anyway, I did that. I know the story is long, but I did that.
You've done a lot, so it makes sense.
Yes, I went to Fordham, did that. I graduated from Fordham University, being the first Fordham Law School graduate to receive a Georgetown Clinical Teaching Fellowship. So in the history of the law school, I was the first graduate to receive that fellowship.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing. I got there, was just in awe of the people around the table with me, and very excited. I was teaching second and third year law students at Georgetown, and I did that for 2 years. I graduated with my LLM with distinction from Georgetown. And I literally left there, came back to Jersey, was teaching at Rutgers University School of Law in Newark. I ran their street law program. I did some judicial internships. I did student academic behavior. I worked for the minority student program. I did a lot of work at Rutgers, loved being at Rutgers, loved my students at Rutgers. We talk all the time. I'm still in connection with them. When I left there, I kind of went to feel like I wanted to give back to my community. I was trying to go back to Brooklyn and start a business that I thought would be helpful at that time. But there was a lot of gentrification going on and different things, and it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. I was doing some consulting work for Merck, and then I reached out to, while I was at Rutgers actually, I gave a speech at the National Street Law event in D.C., and I closed out that event by talking about all the people who had helped me. And Verizon had bought 2 tables at that dinner, so this is how the Verizon comes in.
I was wondering. I was like, "What?" Well, I mean, because you seem like you're doing pretty good with everything you had already going. It's like, so how did Verizon get in there? But there you go.
Yeah, so Verizon comes up, I'm giving the speech, and at the end of my speech, I come down off the stage, and there's this man waiting there for me. And I think, at the time, there was a few people, so I don't want to name names, but I believe it was John France and Amy Hammer and a bunch of other lawyers at Verizon. And he said to me, and Jack Farris, and they said, "Hey, this was great, this was awesome. We work with young people in our pro bono program. Do you think you can come and speak?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." They were like, "We see you live in New Jersey. Our headquarters is in New Jersey." So I was like, "Okay, no problem." So
Basking Ridge, One Verizon Way.
Hello.
I still remember.
Hello, exactly, and it's really nice.
Oh yeah, I've been
so
there.
Nice. It's like so awesome. I tell people all the time, I miss going to work because it's like 2 floors of cafeteria, a Starbucks, a Dunkin' Donuts,
A built-in Verizon store.
Yeah,
like they had the
Verizon
stock market
store.
chain going through the top.
The ticker, the stock ticker.
Yeah.
But there's everything. There's a cleaners. There's a little grocery store. There's a gym. Like you name it, they have it. So
Right.
it's definitely a beautiful place to be. So anyway, so I get back to New Jersey. I go to lunch with Jack and John. They, tell me what they're going to pay me. And I was like, surprised. I was like, okay, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, I actually donated the money that they gave me that year to Rutgers University and started a program called SELA, Summer Enrichment Law Academy. While I was working at Rutgers, I realized how many kids in Newark didn't do anything during the summer, and that broke my heart. So I created this program for them in the day, and sometimes we worked with their parents at night to give them information about the law. And I did that for 2 years. Verizon gave me that money 2 years in a row to come back and speak, and so I still donated that money to the school. So that started my relationship with Verizon. When I went off to Brooklyn to start my own business, which was Splash, and it was a juice bar / vitamin shop, but it also did weekly information sessions on, security law, different types of things, health, just things related to the law and being a better person. So I did that, and when that wasn't going so well, I reached out to Verizon. I said, "Hey, you know my story. I don't know if you remember me." And I emailed Jack and John, and Jack said, "Hey, I remember you, but I don't have any power. Talk to John." And I was like, okay. So anyway, long story short, I talked to John. He was awesome. He's still awesome to today. He's a senior vice president at Verizon, and he hired me.
Wow.
He hired me to manage their global pro bono program, and it was only a temporary hire, which I was totally fine with because I knew God would give me the strength to perform. And so I was able to perform while I was working there. He also gave me the opportunity to survey his attorneys and get work from them. I was a lawyer, so it wasn't that I wasn't an attorney. I could still do that. And so I managed the pro bono program, but I also reached out to his other attorneys to get different types of work on technology.
Wow.
So I was able to do that. And after 2 months of being there, he introduced me to the general counsel, who was Craig Silliman. And literally they told me that day that based on the work that I had done for the couple of months that I had been there, that they will find a position for me at Verizon. And it just absolutely changed my life. Because I had some turmoil, during this time. I actually, had some turmoil, and really getting my foot into a place that I can solidify as a professional was very helpful instead of having, jobs here and there. While I was at Rutgers, I did a little bit of law guardian work and, did a little consulting work. So it was really hard to kind of keep up and manage. And so anyway, I got to Verizon, and I love Verizon. I mean, it has given me the opportunity to spread my wings. I'm a corporate attorney, and I manage our telematics department, where we focus on helping companies who work and get devices from us. And so just being able to do that, my clients are in New Zealand, they're in Dublin, they're around the world. It's just been such an awesome opportunity and awesome experience. And so that's kind of like how I got to Verizon.
Right.
So that's where I am now. I know it's a long story, and I probably left some things out, but that's pretty much how I got to where I am today.
No, that's an amazing story. And the crazy thing about it is, when people, I'm sure when people look at you, they don't assume that you went through all of that to get to where you currently are. And one thing that I definitely caught within your story, not even one thing, two things. One is that yes, you had no problem with asking for what you felt like you wanted and or needed in order for you to get to where you wanted to be. Another part was when you were given an opportunity, even though it was the temporary position, you approached it as if it was a lifelong career position. And
Absolutely.
people don't, um, they don't not see things like that. They notice when someone is giving a full effort. I've told people before, you want $1 million, but you're giving $30,000 worth of effort. Like that doesn't connect.
Exactly.
That doesn't work.
John used to have to come to my office and tell me, please do not stay here till 2 in the morning.
Oh.
Because I would make sure to stay there and do everything. And I said, I have to do what I have to do. And I had a purpose and a plan.
Okay, and that purpose and plan definitely came to fruition. But I mean, obviously, with all that you've already done, I'm sure that you have bigger and better plans for the future. You have more that you want to do. So, what do you have planned for the future?
So, I love my job. And so currently I'm working to really hone in on all the work that we do at Verizon for others. So, like I said, I manage a global pro bono program where we give free legal services around the world to people in need. And I'm working on many different things, helping people in the Ukraine, helping people who are incarcerated, people coming home, all the changes in the law. So it's so weird because I feel like I have all this power. Because I have all this power to help people, help organizations.
All right now, Peter Parker, like, you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. So just having all of that is pretty awesome. And I'm like, me. So sometimes it brings tears to my eyes, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I can't believe that I'm here. I'll never forget, this is kind of a funny story, but I ended up being able to take a trip with the general counsel and the SVP, John, on the jet. And I was sitting in the back of the jet the first time, and I was like, oh my God. And John turned around because he knows me. I think he knows me extremely well. And he was like, are you okay? I was like, I'll be okay. Because I was just like, where am I? How did I get here? How do you go from being homeless on a beach in Brooklyn to being in a corporate jet of Verizon going, on a business trip with the general counsel of Verizon and an SVP of Verizon? And even today, I think that, when I think about these things, it really brings tears to my eyes because I couldn't envision that. I couldn't envision that would be where God had led me. I thought it would be good.
Right.
It's going to be this good, and I think there's so much more. So I want to continue to use my life for good. I think Verizon gives me the platform to do so. I think lately people have been calling me to come and talk to their young people and to be more involved in that, and I really want to focus on that. So I've always spoken, and I plan to kind of formalize my business a little bit more and formalize my brand to really try to teach people at most need and at most risk to really create a life that allows them to unlock their blueprint and to utilize the tools they have as keys to unlocking that blueprint and to be able to succeed in the way that they want to succeed, not in the way I have for them or their families have for them, but the way that they see their lives, unfolding and what their desires are. That's my desires, to really help people to accomplish that. And I'm kind of on my way to doing that. I kind of have 3 principles that I think I'm focusing on, which is, people's individual success, whatever that may be. Also, inclusion. I believe in inclusion. I believe in inclusion because it's been something that has helped me. A lot of people who helped me didn't look like me. I believe in inclusion. I believe in the fact that we're all humans and we need to respect each other, whether they're the janitor or the CEO. I give people the same respect. And I think it's very important for us to stop being divisive. I think we need to look at inclusion and treat people, no matter the color of their skin, with respect and dignity, and let people kind of live a full life based on who they are, but not being judgmental. I was talking to some kids at Netflix one day, and I was telling the audience, I was talking to some lawyers and some young people at a Netflix virtual event. And I was telling the lawyers, I was saying, you cannot be mad at these kids when you see them cussing, carrying on, being disrespectful, their pants is down. They did not ask to be born into the environment in which they were placed. Mm-hmm. And I think as adults, we have to learn that if you're not there to teach and show, be quiet.
Right.
If you're there to only analyze and criticize, move away, because you're only going to do harm more than good.
Yeah.
And so it's very important for us as adults to remember that when we're working with young people or even older people who haven't made it to make some of those changes, to really figure out how we can be of assistance and service to others, but not to criticize and judge, because it's very hurtful. So I want to just, use the rest of my life focusing on helping people. I have a wonderful 13-year-old son I adore and love. He is the apple of my eye. I absolutely love him, and he is doing extremely well, and I want to spend my life, making sure that he has what he needs, and that whatever God has given me, that I can impart that on everyone else so that they can have what they need as well.
Okay. Well, listen, and that's a very noble thing. And I think it's one of those things where I think I can speak for both of us when I say that we both experienced some things in our lives that hindered our thought process from, getting to the point where it's like, I believe I can have and I can achieve and I can attain or make this amount of money or whatever. But I believe we were diligent, and we stayed focused on the path at hand, and it led us almost like we stumbled onto it, right? That's kind of what it felt like at times. It was like, because you have your head down and you're working, you just putting one foot in front of the other, one hand in front of the other, moving forward, and before you knew it, you lift your head up, you're at the mountaintop. You're like, how did I even get here?
Exactly.
Because we fell in love with the process.
Exactly.
I believe I can speak for both of us when I said we never got to the point where we became complacent or thought that the work that we were doing was enough. I believe that we always felt like there was more that we could be doing, more of an impact that we could make on people, on the world. I honestly, personally, for myself, I always felt like because I dealt with so many setbacks, so many issues, that I needed to make up for the time that I thought that I lost. And it took me a while to get to the point where I realized that it's like, no, Brad, you don't have to make up that time. You're here on time. This is where I want you to be right now. Right. It was like all that time that, you spent, whether it be in special ed classes, poverty, going through all the ups and downs, the difficulties, like that was preparing you to be the person that you are today. Absolutely. And I know there's probably have been people who have asked you before, like, if you could change anything in your past, would you change it? My answer to that is always no. I can't play around with the butterfly effect, because if one thing were to have changed about my past, I can't guarantee that I would be the man that I am today, and that's just not a risk I'm willing to take.
Exactly.
I like who I am today.
Exactly. It took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I still cry sometimes about things that happened to me in my childhood, and I think that it takes a long time to get there where you can say, I don't want anything to be different. So I would say that, yes, that's beautiful, and I think I'm still growing in that. But it is the best place to be, where you can look back and say that, and here's what I say to this. I always say that my mother and father were tools that God used to get me into the world. And nothing that they could have done could have changed my path. That allows me to have the grace I need to have to feel like what you just said, because for me it was very emotional and I felt like it was extremely traumatic. But I had the grace and the belief that there was nothing that they could have done. My path was my path, and they were the tools that God used to bring me into the world. And I think that way of thinking, in my opinion, is extremely helpful to young people who feel like their parents are the end-all, be-all. And I think that when you've experienced trauma from people so close to you, it's hard to think that I don't want anything to change. And I really encourage young people to think like that. Like, forget about that. what is your purpose? Why are you here?
Right.
And how you got here don't matter how you got here.
Right.
The fact is that you're here. What you going to do about it now?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what you said is just so important. You change one little thing, and then the whole thing just
Throws off the whole equation. Yep.
Exactly.
Throws out the whole equation. So, man, it's just crazy how life works. And I did something a long time ago, and my wife is still like trying to grasp it now. She's like, well, I don't understand. How can you just? And I'm like, I got rid of false expectations. I don't expect anything from anyone, right? I get what my work deserves. And if there's anybody who is out there who sees my work and they want to be a blessing to it, and then that's great. That's, but I don't expect anything.
Right.
So like when I come home, I don't expect my wife to have cooked or cleaned the house. I have two working hands, and I have a working mind. I can do all those things myself. Right? Now my cooking ain't gonna be as good as hers, right? And I might not clean as well as she does, but I can do enough where I'm functional and things will get done, So that keeps me from being stressed.
Right.
It keeps me from feeling like, being jealous or, or wanting what other people have, or whatever. It's just like, I do what I'm capable of doing, and I get what I deserve. And when God sees me being focused and doing what I'm supposed to do and staying on the path and submitting to his will, then I get the overflow. Then the blessings really start to come in. If I just do the standards, then I'm already going to be blessed. But once I start going to the point where I exceeding and abundant, going above and beyond. So not only am I keeping the word, for myself, but then I'm carrying it out to other people and being a blessing to others.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's when things start to happen in my life that I'm like, well, how?
Yes.
I didn't do anything for that to happen, or I'm not worthy of,
Yes.
I don't deserve that. Why would you give me? Oh, okay, I get it. Because a lot of times it's a test.
Exactly.
When much is given, much is required.
Yes, it is.
So when I'm giving a whole bunch, when I'm giving a lot, then I'm at the point where it's like, okay, Brad, now your cup runneth over. So who are you going to help? Who are you going to bless? Who are you going to be there for? Who can what opportunity can you take to speak and do pro bono work, or do coaching sessions for free, or whatever it is? Use the gift that I gave you to help others. So I just look at the world, I look at life that way, and it keeps me grounded.
Exactly.
And I always have it in the back of my mind that everything that was given to me could easily be taken away
In
just
an
as fast.
I mean, I think about last night I was up until really late, and I just happened to remember that some old pictures that I had I figured out where they were. I got up 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, let me go find them. And I got them, and I was like, wow, like 3 of these girls are dead.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, like, one jumped off a bridge. The other one died from an overdose. I mean, these are girls that I grew up with that, but for the grace of God, I'm where I am.
Right.
Because we probably were all thinking the same way at one point in time or another. I don't separate myself from people and realize, people tend to ask me, I have a very outwardly happy-go-lucky attitude and environment and disposition about myself. And I have a good relationship with our general counsel and our SVPs. And people usually text me. I did an event at Verizon recently, and they're like, I don't understand. You talk to Craig like you guys are friends. You talk to these people like you're friends. I said, listen, I was homeless. I'm not going to judge or talk to anyone differently because of their title. I am respectful to all.
Right.
CEO, SVP, general counsel, janitor,
right.
cleaning lady, cleaning service, they get all my respect and attention and grace.
Right.
And so I treat people like human beings. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what their job titles are. So I think it's so important to build your character. If I had to, one of the things I've been doing lately is talking to young people about who they are. You have to determine who you are. What is your character? What do you believe about yourself and about the world? What do you believe? What do you want to present the world with? And I think that's so important. It's more important than any degree. I have I didn't even tell you about the last degree. So I had, I just got my MBA.
More degrees than a thermometer.
Yes. And so it doesn't matter though, because if your character is not good,
Right.
and if your conscience is not clean, and if you don't know how to be kind and graceful, guess what? You're not gonna have anything. But I know that my blessings come based on my grace and my character, because I wake up every morning not to go to work miserable, even if I have a personal issue going on. But no one there asks for that. So I go to work and I'm happy and I'm excited to do my work and excited to, participate and to be the person that God wanted me to be. And so I think it's so important to teach young people to build your character early on. Don't let people change the desires of your heart for who you have for yourself. Because sometimes you're around a crowd, like they say, where birds of a feather flock together. It's so true. But you can flock alone and let people who want to flock with you come.
Right.
And so it is like so important to me that we start to build up our character and teach young people to build their character and stick by it. Don't let nobody change it.
Right.
Because that's one thing about me is that, people see me and I go hard and I'm hardcore or whatever for the right thing.
Right.
Not for wrong.
Right. I tell people all the time, I tell my wife, tell people around me, I'm like, yo, I understand it's a bad situation, certain things happen, but don't let that situation assassinate your character.
Yes.
Continue to be who you are, continue to do the right thing. And with my brand, the way that I have it set, it's built around integrity, core values. It's built around my character. I want people to know that when you work with me, you're working with somebody who can execute, somebody who's going to be able to get the job done and do it in a way that is respectful, prideful, things. So you feel like I can trust this person.
Exactly.
Like I feel okay working with this person. I want this person to be around my family.
Exactly.
That type of thing. So I think that's why people bring me in. That's why people work with you, because they know that we understand what it takes. Matter of fact, I'll put it like this. We understand what it takes to build something and how easy it is to lose it.
Exactly, because when you have nothing and you get to something, and it makes you know that you can lose it so quickly, but also it takes away also some of that fear too, right? Because you build strength, because you're like, okay, I got this. So you know how to do it. So I think, we have to just build our character and our integrity and our strength. And let me just say that how we got in touch was because I reached out to you.
Right.
Because I'm always impressed with people who have done so much with so little. And that's what I felt from you. Like, you were doing your thing, and I was so proud of you, and I was so thankful to God that you exist. Because one of the things I do feel is a special place in my heart for boys.
Oh.
Okay? No, I'm not calling you a boy.
No, it's all right. I get you.
I'm saying for boys, young boys who are coming up today. And so to have someone like you, and even Jeremy and all these other guys that I met through the, next level, like, I just think that that's awesome because, not that it was easy for me as a female, but I'm more believable. As a female, as a black female, more people would believe me, more people would trust me, more people would want me in their environment. I thought about these things. When I grew up with some guys in Brooklyn who didn't have a chance because the way they looked the way they talked and the way they spoke and the way they acted and the way they behaved, nobody was going to help them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important, and I'm so thankful to you and the men like you who are out there speaking your truth and showing these young men what it's like to be a strong man and what they need to do to grow to be a strong man and to have character and to have integrity and to have strength and to start your own business and to go to school and get educated. And that's why I connected with you, because I was very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So, she reached out to me because she just saw the work that I was doing, and I was taken back by like, oh, wow, me? Okay, but I always look at it as, oh, sure, no problem, it's no big deal. I tell people all the time, I'm not Hollywood. I don't care how many stages you see me on, the bright lights, the pictures, the photographers, videographers, all that good stuff, how much money I'm getting paid from corporations, universities, whatever. That doesn't change me.
Exactly.
Like, I'm still that same person, before this started. And I think that's what makes me a person that's in demand, because I'm personable. Right. So when I get there, there's people like, oh, do you need this or do you need that? I'm like, no, I'm good. A bottle of water is fine. I'm cool. Like, As long the kids are there, like the audience is
Yeah,
there.
as long
Yeah,
as they there.
they're there. Okay, no problem.
If it's only two, then I'm good too.
Yeah, if it's one or two,
Yeah.
I came here to do a job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just that guy where it's like, man, I haven't changed, and because I haven't changed and continue to, move with integrity the way that I do, I believe that I'm blessed for it.
You are.
And there's certain people who are attracted to me, and they can see whether it is like when you look at my clothes and stuff like that. Because in the beginning, that was a thing. They was like, "Oh, Brad, you why don't you put on a suit? Why don't you do this?" And I was like, "Cause I don't want to." Like, there's nothing against it. I think there's plenty of dudes out there who look great in a suit. Steve Harvey killing it. My thing was, that's just not me. And my thing was, if I'm speaking at schools and universities and stuff like that, I only have but a second to get their attention and for them to look at me and see themselves in me. And two, I'm not a liar. When I walk around the streets, when I'm walking around, my daily routine, this is how I dress. So I'm like, so now I gotta dress up to go to work. I don't know. This is my uniform. Shoot, I don't go into McDonald's and slap off people's visor and tell them because I don't like it.
That's so true. No, it's funny because Verizon has this thing, bring your real self to work. And I've been bringing my real self to work, and, I get a lot of slack from it. People text me like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that to this person. Or I don't know what y'all want, but
you asked for it.
This is me. And so as long as I know I'm coming in, like we talked about, the good character, integrity, with grace, with compassion, with kindness, with caring and courtesy, then I don't have anything to worry about. Because my heart is clean.
Yeah.
My heart is pure. And with that is going to come the effectiveness to reach people, to touch people, and have them feel comfortable to open up to me. And that's what relationships are about. It's about feeling the opportunity to open up to one another and be vulnerable and to touch people's hearts. And that's what I want to continue to do in my life, is to continue to touch people's hearts, especially our most vulnerable young people, people that are incarcerated, people that are in detention centers, to touch them and to say, I don't care what your circumstances are today, that if you want to change them, we can change them.
Right.
That's it. And I think it's so easy. And people sometimes get a little annoyed with me because they're like, it's not that easy. It is. It's about your mentality. It's about what you think about yourself. It's about how you think about how people think about you. Forget all of that. Focus on within. Whatever you have in here, work on that. I don't care what's going on around you. Work on here. If you got people in your house who's doing drugs and other people are doing bad things, block them out. Because let me tell you, the power of the mind is awesome. You can block out anything from your mind. I could sit in a room full of a whole bunch of people doing a whole bunch of things, and if my mind is focused, I could care less about anything or any noise happening around me. And that's what we need to teach our young people, to have the devotion to yourself. I think one of the problems with our society today is that everybody's so worried about outwardly, and they take away from what they should be thinking about within themselves. If you thought about every day when you woke up, what is my goal today? Who am I presenting today? Where am I going? Where do I want to be at the end of my day? And how am I going to accomplish those things? You will always be on your A game.
Right.
But a lot of times we're like, oh, my mother said this, and my cousin said this, and my friend said that, and Johnny told me this, and Johnny told me to be here. I don't do that. People think I'm harsh. People think I'm mean. But I'm not. I'm nice, I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm sweet, but I don't let people take me out of what I have planned for myself.
Right. Now, I'm glad you actually said that, because one of the things I normally ask any of the interviewers or interviewees who come on is because a lot of people say on podcasts and different interviews, and they're like, oh, what was the strategy that you used to get where you want to be? Okay, what was the investment? What was this? No, I don't really care about any of that. What I want to know is, what was the mental shift that had to happen in order for you to become the person that you are today?
I'm going to start and say that I'm still becoming her.
Okay.
Because I don't, I think people end up putting me in this place where they think I'm done. I'm not done. I'm not done with me, and I'm not done with whatever God has me to do. I'm not done. So I'd say that. And, I remember telling someone, well, let me answer your question. So
I feel like you said it earlier, though.
I mean, there's a couple of things, but I definitely think it's about, putting my mental energy into me. But I think that comes with something, right? Because the baddest bad person also puts their mental energy into them.
That's true.
Right? So, no. The thing is, determine who you are, who you want to be. So for me, I wanted to be a good, smart, kind, thoughtful, loving, helpful, educated, talented, successful person. Those are all wonderful things. Once I knew that that's what I wanted, then I had to turn that inside of me and say, whatever comes out of me has to represent that.
Right, okay.
Has to represent where I'm going. Has to represent the type of people I want to be around. I was telling someone on the phone today, I refuse to be around people who their character is poor.
Right.
I'm so sorry. I love you.
Right.
I really, really do. But until your character changes, my house don't have room for you. And when I say house, I don't mean building. Anywhere in my space, my mind, in my presence, in my actual house, at a restaurant with me, we not doing none of that. Because I need to protect me at all costs.
Right.
And we have to learn as individuals to protect ourselves and protect ourselves with grace and love. And you can try to help people, but again, you got to still put yourself first. You have to be a little bit selfish in trying to protect that space, because you're no good for others if you're not protecting yourself and you're not protecting what you have to give.
Right.
So that's kind of my mental shift, was just really about, no, Alycia, you're not stupid because you didn't graduate from high school. You're not stupid because you were in special education. You're not stupid because you had dyslexia. You're not stupid because you grew up in foster care. You're not stupid because you were homeless. You're not stupid because you were sleeping on the beach. You're not stupid because you were hungry. You're not stupid because you got in trouble with the law. You're not stupid because, and none of those things, now would be all emotional, but none of those things, made me stupid or made me not able to be a corporate attorney, doing wonderful things at Verizon and, giving pro bono services around the world. Like, I love my life right now, and so nothing prepared me for, like, yes, like, you could do this, besides the fact that I knew I had a clean, good heart, and I wanted goodness, and I believed that my ability to help others and to carry people through and make sure to give back was so important to me. And that leads me to, I think I had mentioned one of the things I wanted to focus on was success, and then I talked about making sure inclusion was important.
Yeah.
But the third thing was the other thing that I really am interested in is philanthropy.
Okay.
Because I think that it's so important, like, no matter how little you have to give.
Yeah.
You have to give. I don't care if you are at your brokest time and you see somebody that you can help them with 25 cents, give them the 25 cents. Because you will know, one, that you are better off than that person you gave that 25 cents. And that feeling of that you are actually have more than you thought you had will help you to get more, because it will empower you. And then also the person that you gave the 25 cents would think, thank you, Jesus, that somebody gave me something.
Right.
That you have presented an option for me to be given something. And that is, like, so awesome, because I've been on both sides of that fence.
Yeah.
Of the getting of somebody who was so generous with their time or their money or their space or their house or whatever, to the point where then people are, like, thanking me for providing them with a lawyer's assistance or something, or money or time or whatever. And so being on both ends of the spectrum is such a beautiful thing to give and to get. And so
Humbling.
I think that it's important for, I don't care how broke you think you are, or if you're young. I always tell my son, when I give him his allowance, he has a spend, a save, and a give. You have to spend, save, and give. A percentage of everything you get has to be to people who do not have what you have.
Right.
So I think philanthropy is important. So those are my three areas that I hope to, kind of build my little speaking business a little bit more, and just, like, really kind of focus on giving back in that way to those in need.
Yeah. Listen, I can hear Kyla in the back. Anyway, but listen, Kyla good for That's when you hit home. That's when you know you hit a nerve, when Kyla in the back. But listen, this has been a great interview. I'm really thankful that you were able to come out and sit down with me for a little while, get to know you a little bit better, more of your story, so the listeners, the viewers can hear and learn about you. So for any of you who have known of Alycia and the work that she's been doing, you probably didn't hear her whole story. You didn't know any of these things about her, but it just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover. You got to actually crack the book open and actually read. So that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for listening in. And as always, I'm your boy, Brad B. Rad Butler II. I encourage every last one of you to make your next day your best day. Why? Because the work you've done today is not enough to get you through tomorrow. Thank you, Alycia.
Thank you so much, Brad. I appreciate you.